Hello, my name is Nelly Atari, and you're welcome to the 3BN YouTube channel. This is the narrations for the book, The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives. And if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning listener, thank you for always coming to listen. This is going to be an episode on chapter 6. We are already read chapter 5 in our previous episode, and in that book, Iyatope was giving us a breakdown and saying that the other two wives, they don't like Bolanle at all, and they have been the mastermind of all the terrible things happened to Bolanle in that house. They made Baba Segi to take away her armchair from the living room. They made Baba Segi to stop Bolanle's friends from coming to visit her, because as we've been reading, you see that Bolanle is quite alone in the house. It's only that sometimes Iyatope talks to her, but that is when the other two wives are not around. That's Iyashegi, the first wife, and Iyafemi, the third wife before Bolanle. That one is just so bitter. But then in the end of chapter 5, Iyashegi was trying to say that she really does not want Bolanle to reveal their secrets, or as she said it, to open their bomb in the open. And I'm like, what secret could they have? They already have their own children. Bolanle is the one who's trying to conceive. So, but let's see, maybe chapter 6 will give us more insight. Stay with us as we continue. Chapter 6 is titled Rathead. If Bolanle had known what lay in wait for her, perhaps she wouldn't have ventured to spend so long in the market, wandering from stall to stall. Before she spotted the small crowd gathered in front of her home, she smelled Mama Elekpa's granuts burning. As Bolanle moved closer, she was sure she could not make out Mama Elekpa's fragile frame on their veranda, bent over from decades of cutting firewood. Most of the women she saw were standing with their hands clasped behind their backs. Some had their hands on their heads and were hopping from leg to leg as if their bladders held them hostage. Taju was leaning against a pillar, scratching his chin. Iyashegi's voice was loudest. "Whoa," she yelled. Iyafemi was screaming in tongues. Iyatope had an arm around Shegi, but the arm was limp like a wet cloth. Shegi's eyes were red from weeping. Everyone looked around nervously. "She wants to kill him," Iyashegi pointed where Bolanle was within a few steps of the commotion. "What did my father ever do to her? I'm not married yet. She wants to kill my father with juju before he walks me down the aisle." Shegi flopped to the concrete floor and the spectators standing by rushed to her aid. "Of what use is she? She cannot have children. Her womb is dead. She wants to kill her husband to save herself from shame. I'm too young to be a widow," Iyafemi added. As soon as Bolanle stepped onto the concrete floor of the veranda, the crowd went quiet. The bystanders parted and created a path for her. When she got to the sitting room, Baba Segi was in his armchair. His arms were slung over the sides. His great legs stretched out in front of him like logs. "Good evening, Baba Segi. Why have you not changed your clothes?" Bolanle asked. "Where have you been? It's not even 6 yet. I'm here on time like I said I would be. The question I'm asking is, where have you been?" His voice was deep and hollow, like the aftermath of a drum beat. "So I can't even leave the house now?" It was a daring response. In a flash, Baba scrambled up the back of his seat and leaped into the air like a gorilla in flight. He landed bang in front of Bolanle and gripped her throat with both hands. He squeezed hard and shook her, pressing his thumbs on her windpipe. "Who are you asking questions? Do I look like a fool? You said you were going to your father's house. Taju had just come back from there. Nobody there has seen you today. Where have you been?" "The market. I went to the market." Her voice was hoarse from the pressure. "You can kill me, Baba Segi, but I only went to the market. Look at the bowl I bought." Baba Segi searched her face and thought how strange it was that there was no fear in it, just pain. He glanced to the side and saw the plastic bag a few inches from her open arm. He let his arms drop to his sides. Bolanle collapsed onto the floor. Akin made to run toward Bolanle, but Iyashegi's arm shot out from her side and held him in his tracks. His mother's arm was steadfast, so he bowed his head and ran down the road. Iyatope knelt beside Bolanle, with Baba Segi towering over them. She slapped Bolanle's cheek slightly. "Tell him, Bolanle. Tell him if you did it. Tell him. He will forgive you. We have all offended our husband before. He always forgives us. Confess to him." Bolanle spluttered and grabbed her throat. The dry weather had split her lips, and a solitary droplet of blood trickled from one of the creases in them. "Tope, bring me some water." Tope didn't take her eyes off Bolanle until her daughter returned with half a plastic cup of warm, recently boiled water. Tope sprinkled some on Bolanle's face and placed the cup to her lips. Bolanle looked up at the woman cradling her face in the crook of her arm. "Confess to what?" Baba Shagi marched to the stool beside his armchair and produced a see-through polythene bag. This, he spat, pinching the bag at the corner farthest away from what it contained. At the bottom of the bag, looking vaguely surprised by all the attention it was getting, was the head of a decomposed rodent, a large bush rat perhaps. Tell me why I found this in your bedroom. There were bits of dried flesh stuck to it. Its mouth was bound together by a red thread. A 4-inch nail had been knocked into the crown of its head, shattering the skull at the point of entry, then driven all the way in it until it protruded out of the rodent's throat. Bolanle's face hardened. How can I confess to something I know nothing about? Strangle me, kill me, but first ask yourself if I would descend this low. Would I descend to this? Would I touch something so revolting? Do you really think I will go to a babalao, let alone ask for something that would harm you? If I didn't want to be with you, would I not just leave? Iyashegi was by the door. She saw the opening and jumped in. Who can tell why she would do this, Baba Segi? She wants to kill you first and then leave. She's a destroyer of homes. Why didn't she go to the abattoir if she was thirsty for blood? There is no blood for you here, Bolanle. There is no blood for you here. She paused and turned to Iyatope. We have been suspicious for some months now, haven't we, Iyatope? Iyatope looked up at the older wife. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She tried again, but her lips just opened and closed like a fish anticipating a maggot. Iyashegi, I have never desired blood in my life. Bolanle felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. Then why was this found in your bedroom? Babashegi's voice was calmer now. He was beginning to see that things didn't quite add up, but he decided to see it through so he could observe her reactions. Stand up and come and see for yourself. I will not touch it. He sighed with relief when Bolanle crawled toward whatever it was that Baba Segi had pushed beneath a stool. In a small calabash, there was a spool of once white thread, half immersed in a pool of blood. Unspeakable, Bolanle hissed. She turned and looked up at Baba Segi. Do you think so little of me? Baba Segi looked away, but Iyashegi would not let it go. Oh, it is unspeakable now you have been found out. Who would have known that all those times you left the house you were visiting a babalao? Who would have thought that a graduate would stoop to something so unspeakable? Iyashegi pronounced the word unspeakable like she was swallowing a single ear of corn. A clucking started deep within her double chin. Bolanle put one hand on the side of her neck and grimaced. She let her head roll round in a full circle before turning to her husband. She shook her head and coughed to clear her throat. I have nothing to say, Baba Segi, except that I do not know where these things came from. There must be some mistake. I have never seen anything like this before. To the small crowd that had gathered in the sitting room, Bolanle said, I say, I have never seen these things before in my life. Neither do I want to ever again. Why would I want to kill my husband? If I have become tired of my husband, isn't there a policeman in the world that can force me to stay with him? Why? I'm here because I want to be here. She exhaled long and meaningfully. I have lived in this house for 2 years, and I want to continue to stay if my husband will have me. Only today we went to the doctor to see how I could bear his children. I do not want to die barren. How is it profitable for me to become a young widow? Why would I want my child or any of these young children to be fatherless? Her hands reached to brush Femi's head, but he ducked. Everyone looked on in sympathy, and Shaggy wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. Shaggy read the situation and stole into the crowd like a giant hen skulking to a secret stash of corn. Just over his breath, Baba Shaggy said, Bolanle, you can go to your room. To everyone's surprise, Iyafemi catapulted herself toward him from the edge of the crowd. Go to our room, she shrieked. Is it after she has killed us all that you will do the right thing? If this woman is allowed to sleep in this house, I will sleep outside with my sons. I will hold a night vigil and pray her out. She bounced on the balls of her feet, her upstretched arms exposing clumps of armpit hair. Iyafemi, you can sleep in the gutter if you want to. Babashegi's voice was calm, but angry and returned to his eyes. That is where you came from. My sons were not born to sleep in the gutter, so they cannot follow you. Iyatope, take my sons to bed. This woman's mouth will soon get what it deserves. Anyone who touches my sons may not live to tell the tale. Has this woman's head scattered as she now scrubs my mouth? Have my words become so insignificant that they can now be contested? He opened out one of his hands to the crowd as if they would deposit the answers to his questions into his palm. Iyashegi. Perched on a crumbling concrete block by the side wall, Iyashegi remained still until several voices echoed her husband's call. I'm here, my lord. This house is a mess. Clean it. Right away, my lord. Their voyeuristic thirst quenched. Everyone got the message and began to agitate for a speedy exit. The spectacle had been gratifying, the outcome glorious. Baba Shagi couldn't bear to stay at home that evening, so he drove himself to Ayikara. I could have killed her with my bare hands, my own wife. It was as if a wild beast from inside me wanted to suck blood from her throat, but Baba Segi didn't want the three men in the far corner of the shack to hear him. It didn't matter that there was an empty bottle of teacher's whiskey on the table in front of them, or that the few phrases they exchanged were slurred and incoherent. This was a matter Baba Segi did not want to discuss with strangers. And you say she did not fight back? No, she was calm. What fight can a fly fight when it is in the clutches of a tarantula? Baba Segi muttered and looked away. Calm is not the reaction of someone who has been caught red-fingered. Remind me, how did your other wives react to this discovery? You mentioned that. That is what I don't understand, Baba Segi cut him short. Apart from one of them who seemed as perplexed as I was, the other two were adamant that Bolanle had planted the juju. They were convinced that she was guilty. Teacher smirked and nodded knowingly. What are relations like between Bolanle and these other wives? There must be a reason why they were fighting tongue and nail for her to confess. Well, in recent months, I myself have been hostile to the young woman, but only because of this question of her barrenness. Our unwillingness to submit to my earlier solutions also hardened my heart. I have not been warm to her. It has always been hard for me to hide what is inside. I think perhaps my wives noticed this and copied me. So they want you to send her away and you think it's a reaction to your unhappiness. I know they do. They said so in my presence, in her presence. Why have you not attempted to mediate? From what you have always said about your first wife, I have come to believe she was more of an agreeable temperament. I would be lying if I said she wasn't. That woman knows every thought that enters my head. She knows when I am thirsty and when my belly is full. She knows I have been disgruntled about Bolanle and I suspect she just wants to relieve me of my troubles. But planting juju is excessive. Why use a hammer to swat an insect? As if to illustrate his point, teacher elegantly flicked a fly from his shot glass. It must have seemed reasonable to her given how displeased I have been. I agree with you though. If it was as if Esu himself came to dine in my house yesterday evening, I tell you, I could have killed Bolanle. Baba Segi folded his arms and shook his head. Listen, Baba Segi, perhaps you are partly to blame for what has happened. Your partiality is the cause of these problems. Women do not hesitate to become cannibals when they are hungry. That is why I have never kept one. Some people laugh about this behind my back, but what they don't know is this. He who does not have a head has no need for a cap. Indeed. But back to the trouble in your household. It is my belief that the solution lies with you, and I can tell you that her being educated is not helping matters either. His finger raps on the side of his glass. I don't understand. Teacher took a sip from his whiskey and winced when he swallowed. What I mean is that she's different. It may well be that your other wives are significantly uncomfortable about this. They may think it gives her an edge. Teacher chose his words carefully. What sort of edge? I do not sleep with anyone more than the others. It's more complicated than that. It could be that they are envious. That I can rule out. Baba Segi was afraid that teacher would suggest that he too was prone to such. A smile tickled the corners of teacher's lips, but he didn't submit to it. If you are sure that this is not the case, then it all lies in your hands. Treat your wives equally. Blacken the kettle as you blacken the pots. Wow, this is like a really good and I like what teacher said. Blacken the kettle as you blacken the pots. You decided to have 4 wives, so you try your best to do everything equally. Although I don't believe that, it can be equal, but let's see how Baba Segi will do. So can you see the trouble that Yatope was trying to tell us in chapter 5? Iyashegi and Iyafemi planted juju in Bolanle's room, and Baba Segi just fell for it hook, line, and sinker. But I like how she reacted. She stood her ground and, was able to put in some senses into Baba Segi. This book is definitely getting to the part where all of their secrets will be out. So please, to continue with us, please tap on the subscribe button. You'll be able to know when new videos of this book comes up and all of our other videos that would educate and inform you. Till next time, I'm Nelly Atare. Enjoy the rest of your day.